This is Halim Madi. Halim is a poet and author of 4 poetry books. His most recent one, born during the pandemic, involved responding to scam texts with poetry, leading to a book and an LLM trained to mimic his response. Halim is also a programmer. His work merges whimsical web interfaces with poetry and creates a space for words to dance. Halim Madi. There's your cable for you.
Hey everyone. Here's a story. It's 2006. I'm 17 with a suitcase and a package in my hands. Lebanese stamp glue is sticking to my fingers. I'm on my way to board a flight from Beirut to Paris to start college. My flight is paid for by Miss Lebanon 2004 in exchange for me delivering the package. A few minutes after crossing the security checkpoint, the PA voice says my name and asks me to go back to airport security. Immediately, I realize I forgot the package in my mother's car. To this day, I can see the lines of anger and disbelief on her forehead as she hands me the package. She says something along the lines of, "Is this how we're getting started?" By which she means, "Son, how will you survive out there on your own?" Or, "Son, can I trust you?" I take the package, ignore the question, and head to the gate. On my way past security again, I turn one last time. And my mother and I don't agree on this point, but in my memory, when I turn, my mother isn't there. In the myth of Orpheus and Eurydice, Orpheus, the first Greek poet, is allowed to save Eurydice, his beloved, from the clutches of hell, on the condition he does not look back at her on their way out. But he does, just as they're about to exit hell, and Eurydice vanishes forever. There are theories as to why. After all, Orpheus could have waited for 30 seconds before he looked at her face. But it might be that he chooses the memory of her rather than her actual body. Maybe he makes this the poet's choice rather than the lover's choice. Maybe he chooses the idea of Eurydice rather than the body of Eurydice. Another theory is that Eurydice herself asks him to turn around. She whispers, "Turn around." Maybe I forgot that package. Maybe I wanted to see my mother one more time before she turned into memory. Maybe I wanted to have my mother's face vanish on my own terms. Or maybe she kept the package so she could see me one more time before I left home, before home became a memory in her son's body. After Eurydice disappears, it said Orpheus becomes a nomad or a migrant and wanders the wilderness. I like to think he sings a song about home. It goes like this. Where is home for you? Born on a map, the animal that changes, denies, erases, reaches through. This is an interactive experience, so you can pull out your phones, you can scan this QR code, and what I'll ask you to do for the next seconds is to map your own journey. What has been your journey, your migrant journey? Where have you moved? If it's only in the US, you can trace the lines, you'll see how it works. On my side, like Orpheus, I'm a poet. I'm also a programmer, and most of my work is at the intersection of language and technology. As a child, I spent a large chunk of my time reading books and getting specific about the meaning and the impact of the words I used led me to some of my most important breakthroughs. As a teenager growing up in Lebanon, I owe my first states of escape and the sheer magnitude of the human experience to the web. And so mixing the web and language, nowadays, infusing language with the possibilities of the internet, allows me to communicate certain epiphanies in a way the printed page cannot. Also like Orpheus, thank you for drawing so much, this is beautiful. Ever since I left Lebanon and my mother, I've been wandering. And so my own journey, in every place I landed, my name changed. In Lebanon, they call me Halim Madi. You can notice the harsher H, H, and the heavier Arabic D. When I moved to Paris, now your lines are hiding mine, my name became Halim Madi, and the H became silent, vanished like Eurydice. The D became so much softer. In London, Halim Madi, though the English always found a way not to pronounce my name when they were referring to me. In Sao Paulo, it became Halim Madi. The ing became nasalized. And in California, I often get Halim or Halim. I don't mind any of these names, to be clear, but the change is a facade for a more fundamental transformation. Born on a map, the animal that changes. And you can enter that same sentence on your screen to get to the next experience. The animal that changes. I'll let you color away. I recently learned that the chameleon changes color by either shrinking or expanding the pigmented cells on its skin. Similarly, migrants need to shrink or grow parts of themselves to blend into the host environment. One instance of migrants shrinking parts of themselves occurs at border control. Migrants are asked questions at every threshold of their journey, and often they need to answer no. This is awesome. This is the first time I'm testing with so many people. Thank you, everyone. Born on a map, the animal that changes needs to deny. At the UK border control, almost a decade ago now, I opened my passport to my UK tourist visa, and when the border agent asks if I'll be working in the country, I make the mistake of saying yes. I say I might use my laptop to get some work done whilst visiting. And that day I'm refused entry. And a month's worth of plans vanishes. 6 years later, at the US border, I'm asked again about the purpose of my visit, and I answer truthfully, tourism, and I'm here to see a person I'm dating. The agent immediately perks up and says, asks whether I intend to marry that person. And I freeze. The truthful answer is, I don't know. We've been together for 6 months. I have no idea. But of course, the right answer is no. And that day, I give the right answer. After Eurydice vanishes, it is said Orpheus stops worshipping Bacchus, the god of wine and fertility and parties, and starts worshipping Apollo instead, the god of prophecy and truth, a much more serious god. It's as if his encounter with Hades, his loss of Eurydice, this is the Hades from Disney, cleanses him of desire. He becomes a monk in a way. In our world, the border agent is a Hades of sorts. And the migrant must both deny and suppress their unhindered desire and perform that suppression. The migrant must signal harmlessness, assure the host body they are not viral and have the potential of grafting onto it perfectly. They sanitize their desiring self by denying desire over and over. In this experience, the questions on the US application for citizenship act as obstacles. They make it harder, I don't know why I made it this hard actually, to check the no, to truly perform denials, you get it. And because the immigrant journey is so labyrinth-like, the migrant themselves, their identity, and importantly, their conception of home, slowly becomes labyrinthine, starts mirroring that process. Where is home for you? Born on a map, the animal that changes, denies, erases. My relationship with my mother starts breaking down when I come to the US and I start going to Lebanon much less frequently. It also coincides with the moment where I start reading more books in English than in French or Arabic. In this conversation between me and her, we're basically saying the same things. This is an exact translation. We're both writing the same things in our journals. We're both writers. A page drenched in words, air won't carry heavy like mine. صفحة مبللة بالكلمات الهواء لا يحملها ثقيلة مثل العقل. But the overlap is not synonymous with understanding. When the words come over each other, it's an occlusion of the other. We are speaking over and past each other. We're missing the other person in every conversation. And in one version of the myth, Orpheus turns around because he can't hear Eurydice anymore. As I slowly erase Arabic from my personality, my vocabulary, my persona, as I erase Arabic word by word, as I successfully start passing for Western-bred male body, I stop hearing my mother. At the same time as my Arabic vanishes, I vanish too. I become Eurydice in this shared myth between me and my mother, the one we play. And home becomes a disappearing act. Where is home for you? Born on a map, the animal that changes, denies, and erases, what is left when the immigrant has come to excel at denial and self-erasure? And I'd argue that part of the answer lies in the word reaches. The story, a few weeks ago, my uncle Johnny leaves me a voice message on WhatsApp. He goes, "Hi Habibi, kifak khalo? It's Khalo Johnny, your favorite uncle." And for the record, he's not my favorite uncle. That would be my Uncle Joe. But in the message, he calls me champion. He also says, "Get married" in the message. He calls me champion because on the scale of accomplishments in my family's mind, in the aftermath of the Lebanese civil war, which they could not escape, a US passport is the equivalent of the Nobel Prize or an Olympic gold. He tells me he wants to send his daughter abroad. He asks me if I have a job for her, and he quickly adds that I don't need to worry. I shouldn't worry about her, about him, about the family, about my mother. He says, "Stay strong. Stay strong." What is left when the immigrant has come to excel at denial and self-erasure? One possible answer is the reaching, ambition itself. Sociologist Aftar Bra describes home as the place of uneven becoming. And I'd argue the migrant evens the uneven place of home with the excess of more. I wonder how much of my pursuits, my art practice, and my career are a compensatory palliative for the absence of a sense of home. The daunting truth, however, is that the home desire is impossible to fulfill. Aftar Bra writes about how desire begets loss, how we experience the story of Orpheus and Eurydice's love as so powerful because of loss, because Eurydice vanishes. After turning to realize my mother had vanished at the airport back then, I didn't turn again. Something about that crossing felt final, as if it was a contract with the god of departures, with Hades. An agreement every migrant signs to never look back, an understanding that desire begets loss. I've been on this journey of desire and loss for 19 years now. I have a Lebanese passport, and I've been chasing one piece of paper after another. As a Lebanese citizen, I needed a visa to visit or live in France. I could keep going here. Japan, Peru, Canada, Morocco, the UK, the US, Malaysia, Thailand, Indonesia, Colombia, Vietnam, and the list goes on. And to get these pieces of paper, I needed to produce other pieces of paper. Last summer, when I discovered I could visit Costa Rica without a visa, because I'm now a green card holder, I thought there was a misunderstanding. When I crossed border control in San Jose without showing some identification I had fought for, something felt amiss. This obstacle course in pursuit of paper inspired the piece you'll see in a few months in July at Gray Area. It's called Deserve It. It's an attempt to simulate the migrant experience. It's an application process, which you can see in this sophisticated illustration, where folks deny, erase, or reach for identity on a PC in a booth reminiscent of administrative experiences like the DMV or consulates. As they do, their experience is projected on this white veil, and if they pass, which isn't guaranteed, they are asked to take a picture of themselves and told they earned a piece of paper they can collect behind the veil. And behind the veil, of course, is the god of departures, the sacred lord of every migrant. Behind the veil is a printer. The same machine used to print ID cards and visas. The machine that gives migrants their right to exist. It's on a pedestal with lights on it, and if I manage to get a halo, I'll add that. If they pass, the god of departures, the printer god, prints their right to exist. And given the printer God, and the printed paper will likely fall from the printer onto the ground. The printer won't levitate, I'm just moving it right now. The audience will actually have to kneel to get that paper, the way they would in front of a god. The form the installation borrows, which is close to what you've seen in the stock today, this mixture of poetry and computation is, I find, well suited to address our question, the one we started with. Where is home for you? On the surface, it might seem like technology is just a way to deliver poetry in a more engaging fashion. But I'd argue the power of computational poetry, which is what this is its ability to challenge legibility. What we're doing here is actively scrambling the straightforwardness of consuming literature on a printed or a digital page. And in doing so, in this piece, it hints at the answer we've been seeking together. Just like this piece and this installation, home itself, this used to look like a chameleon, so remember what was behind it. Home itself is a chameleon, at times masquerading as a noun, and at others performing as a verb. Home, and this is your password for the next experience. Home is a drag performer. If you pull your phone again and just type in home is a drag, you'll get performer. And we'll close with this. On the screen, you can enter however you'd answer this question. How do you home? Home is a drag performer. It refuses to be grasped. Like poetry and the web, home is indeterminate, which in Latin was closer in meaning to unlimited than to undefined. And in that sense, indeterminacy is another way of saying queerness, is another way of saying trickster, is another way of saying mindfuckery. And the question, where is home for you then, might not be queer enough for our purposes. Home becomes an either or when we require it to be somewhere. When I'm walking on Mission Street, longing for the grungy art galleries of Vila Madalena in Sao Paulo, I have a choice. Either I see the longing as a proof of the incompleteness of my life in San Francisco, or I hold it like a miracle. Both and. To say home is indeterminate or queer means I am home precisely when I'm riding the bus to Pack Heights while I long for the cobbled stones of the streets in the 5e arrondissement in Paris. Home is not the completion of a search for arrival, but a grand ongoing embrace of all our departures, all our longings. In the myth of Orpheus and Eurydice, we forget that the reason Orpheus goes down to hell is because Eurydice had died of a snake bite during their marriage. He charms Hades and Persephone, I have goosebumps, with his music so he can see his dead wife one more time. When he turns back to look at her, he is losing Eurydice for the second time. The whole myth is a metaphor for exposure therapy, for embracing the longing and the departures. Home is the vanishing of Eurydice. Home is my longing for a better relationship with my mother while living 7,000 miles away from her. Rather than a noun that points to a destination we might get to one day, home is best witnessed as the verb that holds the generosity of our longings. And so a more fitting question is, how do you home? How do you home? Sunsets and full moons, dab, text my friends back, sleep within myself, dream, coup or COO, occasionally unfurling my subconscious. Home is a drag performer, carefully cook for those I love with uncertainty, nap, cry on the phone with my mom, drink lots of water and breathe when you hold me, ask someone for a hug, cooking for joy, where the books are, longing generously, going back. Thank you, everyone.